To be frank, this video would not exist without the direct influence of a single patron on my Patreon.
Whoa! Na 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 na. I have an extremely narrow set of interests. World of Warcraft used to be among them in my adolescence. I played World of Warcraft from the beginning of Vanilla in 2004 to the beginning of Cataclysm in 2010. For the longest time, it was one of the only multiplayer games I played among a small collection. This, in tandem with my not having any in-real-life friends whatsoever until high school, made it extremely difficult for me to get into this massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Playing through Vanilla was therefore more of a colossal slog than it had any right to be. My biggest personal problem with Vanilla was the class-race combinations restricting what I wanted to do. The first character I wanted to create was an Undead Forsaken Paladin. Firstly, I strongly identified with the Undead Forsaken on a personal, spiritual level. Secondly, I felt playing a paladin had the most verisimilitude to the kind of backstory my ideal character would have, both logically and stylistically. In Vanilla proper, if I wanted to play a paladin, I would have to make either a human or a dwarf. They were both races belonging to one of the two factions in World of Warcraft, the Alliance. I strongly disliked playing Alliance because all the races within were boring. Unfortunately for me, I made two mistakes. The first mistake was playing on the Cenarion Circles server, which always had a strong slant towards Alliance players. The second mistake was making a Night Elf warrior, in order to capitalize on the Night Elf Mohawk theme created by the commercials for World of Warcraft featuring Mr. T. I liked Mr. T, but not even the silliness of the Night Elf Mohawk could redeem playing Night Elves in general. Furthermore, I was not a very good fit for the warrior class. I would resume being laughably out of place until I met a dwarf warrior who was part of a guild my family members insinuated themselves into. This warrior was of the protection specialization, which focused on playing the role of a tank in player versus environment dungeons and raids. He and his wife also had horde alternate characters, or alts, which were supremely helpful to the other characters I often tried to play, all horde. Sadly, the dwarf warrior died in real life just a few months into my friendship with him. His wife also understandably stopped playing after a fashion. Because of how cool both of them were to me, I invested into learning the protection tree and accruing knowledge to evolve from a zero to an anti-hero. In spirit, I was honoring them. The story after Vanilla consists of me having been slightly successful in Wrath of the Lich King. I remember doing decently well in 25-man raids with the noted exception of Ulduar. However, my attempts to convey this without going into a frothing rage about World of Warcraft as a game in general have been so disastrous, I now choose to abridge the rest of this sad story for both the sake of brevity and keeping my mood from permanently descending into an abyss of what could have been. I attempted to make a pros and cons list. The idea was to remember what I liked versus what I did not. I deemed the pros and cons list a failure for two reasons. The first is I can count the number of pros on one hand. The second is every con except one has been spoken of in better detail by multiple other content creators who are better at this crap than I am. At the very least, I still kept this list in the video. I'm sure there's someone out there who will find this wall of text entertaining. My attempts to replace World of Warcraft have, in the past, failed. To sum it up, I generally found other MMORPGs I've played to be as unimpressive, but for differing reasons. I originally wanted to make a Magic the Gathering deck based on my experiences with World of Warcraft. Very few themes in Warcraft work outside of it, which made theorizing what I could do difficult until Tazri Beacon of Unity was released a few years ago. I at least have a solid commander, which is a start.
The alternate plan with this was to make a storytime series based on minor snippets I legitimately remembered. It would be akin to Al Bruno III's Binder of Shame series, only... Wait, no, this is just that one bad web show my parents liked but I couldn't stand. Never mind. Plan C was to use WoW to channel my hostility to the idea of nostalgia. I have already begun challenging my past admiration of it using a private server known as Ascension. By default of removing classes and allowing me to mix and match abilities from what used to be the game's classes, Ascension has already proven to be superior to retail WoW. I am interested in trying out other private servers, but will need to manage my time better before I can continue destroying nostalgia with extreme prejudice. Plan D was to attempt to use World of Warcraft as a springboard for a variety of topics. These topics would include, but not be limited to, addiction, parasocial relationships, nihilism. This is how you don't develop a video game. This is how you don't world build. This is how you don't play with fantasy tropes in any capacity. The one time a new zone in Cataclysm quickly became recognized as a tactless reference to Indiana Jones, and it pissed me the fuck off. Because Blizzard could have actually made a decent zone, but instead chose to have horrid taste. Yeah, no, World of Warcraft is not a good springboard for any of these. It does nothing well. For the past few months, I've thought about making an advertisement video for my Patreon. Every time, it got me to thinking about how subscription services in general are sometimes used. World of Warcraft runs on a $15 a month subscription fee, as does the very thing I wanted to replace it with, Final Fantasy XIV. I've made it here in reference to this subscription fee, known as MMO insurance. Not every MMORPG runs on a subscription model, but some of the better ones typically do. Sometimes a free trial is used to incentivize play, but I have a hard time trusting free trials in general. Usually it's just a hook to get me to eventually pony up for the real deal. Subscription services also exist outside of MMOs. For example, I watch a fair bit of Netflix. However, that fair bit usually costs my folks $8 a month. Unlike with a World of Warcraft subscription, accounts tied to each MMO subscription are not supposed to be shareable between different individuals. For the record, contributions to my Patreon are optional. I would prefer people take care of themselves first, and I know it goes both ways for my friends and their desire for my self-care being a priority. My gaming misadventures are also fundable on my Twitch, which runs on much cheaper monthly ratios compared to the MMO insurance tier. These are also not compulsory, and I expect very little, given how my video essays usually fare.